Hi. So, I was thinking about complaining. I've been researching investors for the past couple of weeks. I go off in stints occasionally and try and pave new paths for my work that I'm working on. And past couple of weeks I decided to deep dive into investors and see if I could truly capture an investor. I've done it before. I've also looked into grants and government funding, but somebody pointed out to me that the way to sell to an investor is to tell a story. And I was like, oh, that's probably what I've been missing and why I can't really gain any traction with investors. And the reality is no. I've been deep diving into the investor world, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. And instead of complaining about it, I was going to do what I've learned about investors. So there's links down in the description below about what I'm going to talk about. Also, there's a bunch of links with investor platforms or investors if you want to go and try and get some investment money. So there's links down there for that as well. So anyway, the first question you should ask if you're going to get an investor is, should you get an investor? Thinking about it, you should really think about it in depth. Like really try and strategize and understand what motivation is trying to push you to get an investor. It's not as simple as, I got an idea, let's go get an investor and then build a company. It's more of a, I got an idea, let's prototype it, test it out, and see if it works, and then build a company around it, and then try and grow the company, and then realize you need an investor. That's like the generic idea. But if you have actual revenue, I keep thinking about this, and actual revenue, to me, if your product is selling that well, you should be able to strategize a process that generates enough profit that allows you to grow the business. You shouldn't be spending every dime you make trying to keep the company alive. You're stretched too thin. What is it? That just popped in my head. Fallout Shelter. I've been playing that video game on and off recently. And one of the tips they give you is don't build your base bigger than what you can manage, or bigger than the resources you have to manage it. It's kind of funny that a video game pretty much teaches you this idea of constructing an environment that is within the means of the production. So as I'm saying with revenue, if you're pulling in X amount of dollars and you have Y amount in profit, don't push the limits of your company trying to use all your profits in trying to build your product. You should put some of that aside for future growth. So that got me thinking on, okay, well, what scenarios do you actually need an investor? And the only one I can think of that really works, I mean, you have investors, and then you have grants, and then you have other forms of investment. They're all kind of the same though, but we'll get to that kind of stuff later. But the only scenario that I can think of is when you have a prototype of your product and the cost to build the prototype is too expensive to sell at its current state. So for example, if let's say 3D printer. So I have a new 3D printer idea, and I bought all the materials, I built it, I showcased it, it works, it does what I expect it to do, but the materials cost $700 because there's an upcharge on buying it from retail instead of directly from the manufacturers and at bulk, and I'm manually building this myself, and it takes me 3 weeks to do it. And that 3 weeks to build one product costs $1,000 a week, so $3,000. So you're up $3,600 for this one 3D printer. Where if you can crank out 3,000 in 1 week, now you're charging like $1 for labor or something to that effect, whatever the actual math is. I'm not going to do that in my head. And now you got just the cost of the materials, like at $600, and maybe you source them for cheaper, so it's $500, and now you can charge $800 for the product and make $200 in profit. So the act of scaling up, you're sitting at one product and selling it at $3,600 versus what your target is, which is $800. You can't get there by generating your own revenue. You have to have an investor to purchase the materials at scale directly from the manufacturer, and you have to have an investor to bring on the labor force needed to build this as efficiently as possible to keep the cost down. So in that scenario, I can definitely see someone needing an investor, and that's kind of where I'm at. Is that I've built the prototype, it works. I have a working model of the algorithm that I built, but it currently takes, in 24 hours, it gets through 5% of the processing that needs to be done. And this is on the simplest of tasks for my project, which is character recognition. It's taking 24 hours to do 5%. It's like, okay, this is going to take forever. And so I need to scale it up. I need more computing power. There's probably some optimizations I can do to the algorithm, but focusing on this work requires full-time effort and lots of computing power to bring it to scale. And that's why I'm looking for an investor. And so you got to juggle these questions. I mean, I also have a friend that's trying to build a company, and his business model, while initially it relied on computer hardware, a software system that requires a lot of computer hardware, a lot of data storage, his model has shifted, and it's kind of, my question becomes, why aren't you pursuing the low-hanging fruit, if you will, to build your project, to build your company? Because I send them to him occasionally, he doesn't pursue them, but it's like, it's there. If you just tackle these tasks, which is directly in line with what you're trying to accomplish, then you'd get funding. You'd get funding by selling your services to those people. And so there's definitely, you definitely should think through whether or not you can truly do this on your own. Because if there's an avenue for you to do it on your own, then definitely go that route. But if there's that hurdle of scaling up, of you have to spend money to scale up and there's no way around it, then that's kind of the other question. I also considered cutting all my expenses. Let's say you're a business owner and you're paying yourself $500,000 or whatever. It's like, well, why are you paying yourself so much? Do you really need that kind of a salary to get this job done? And maybe you can scale it back for a couple of years, put that money into some kind of investment account, and then at the end of the 2 years you'll have close to $1 million, and now you can leverage that to expand your company. In my scenario, I've thought about it, and I skim a little bit off my salary. I mean, that's what I've been doing for the past 2 years, is I've been struggling to strategize, forcing my current salary into a model that could fund my work effort. And without selling everything, which I honestly considered sell everything and live out of a shoebox or something, even in that scenario, I can't generate enough money to get into a position that'll let me focus on this full time. And so that's why I continue to shop around for an investor or some kind of grant or investment funding, because I'm at that breaking point where I need some kind of investment to move this project forward. So definitely think through that stuff and try and grasp whether or not investor is the only way forward, because you also have to deal with the fact that an investor is not a silent partner that's going to just throw money at you and make it done. They're going to want to be involved. They want to know what's going on. They want to be in connection with what's going on, and maybe even want to influence what's going on. Maybe they see a better path, or maybe they see a worse path, but they think it's the right path. I mean, I don't know. Everybody has their faults. But anyway, so that's something to think about before you just jump in and try and get an investor. The next thing I want to talk about is somebody that I've been following, that his work is similar to mine in the sense that he's doing hardcore research and he's built a company around it, i.e. dwave. But how did he get there? What was his process? What did he accomplish to convince investors to give him money? And several things stand out to me. He has a PhD. He actually has a couple degrees in quantum mechanics, quantum physics. He also wrote several papers, and he got them published in scientific journals. He also networked with the community. I mean, one of his goals initially was to connect with the scientists in the community and build kind of a working group to tackle this problem of quantum computing. And so he made waves in the industry. He became a known figure. People knew who he was and what he was trying to accomplish, just by getting out there and publishing papers and talking to people. Now, publishing a paper, I don't know the full extent. I mean, technically I got a patent, but I had lawyers helping, and also the principal investigator helping me write this paper. So it's not like I was doing it alone. And I don't know if he was, or it sounds like he had people helping him along the way as well. And so he had help. He published a lot of work, and he became known in the industry, which eventually connected him with people that wanted to invest in his idea. And so he created this persona that people wanted to invest in. He created trust, if you will. And he created interest. He created, his community was interested in what he was building. And so that gave way to investors wanting to invest in his idea. I don't know that his idea specifically is what sparked the investors, but the impression I'm getting from all of this research that I've done is that the idea itself isn't as important as everything else, and we'll get to that here in a second. Another example, another guy similar to the previous one, he created the Human Genome Project, mapped the human DNA back in, 2004, 2006, somewhere around there. I don't remember exactly. But again, he has credentials. He has a PhD. He wrote a bunch of papers. Those papers were disrupting the community. So he was well known in the community. I mean, if you listen to his his video, his talk, he's like, yeah, they pretty much hated him because he kept undermining their work by publishing the solution to their work before they could get to it. And he also had a working prototype, i.e. his solution worked, and he was able to publish those papers based on the algorithm that he was using. But he needed to get it to scale. He needed to get investors so that he could use a huge amount of computing power to run this against the entire human genome instead of just small pieces of it. And again, he was known in the community. People knew who he was. I don't know exactly how he came across his investors, if he sought them out or if they found him and wanted to invest. I don't know exactly, but again, he was known in the community, and he had experience doing specifically this work. And so this comes to the next question, which is, what are investors looking for? What I've come to realize is that, and I guess that investors are looking for somebody that can do business development, somebody with a proven track record generating revenue, somebody that has customers or is connecting with potential customers and creating a marketplace for the product that they're building. That one's probably key. So is there an interest? Do people want this thing that you're building? And can you show that people are interested in the thing that you're building? As I showed with the two examples that I got, they connected with their community. They were well known in the community. They were creating customers. Whether they despised them or were excited for the work that they were doing. They were creating a need for the product that they were building. The other aspect is building a team, growing a team, managing a team. It's like how well can you build a team of people to work on your project, to work on your product. Now, granted, any one of these aspects you could say that isn't as important as the others. So if you get an investor, they might come in and say, well, we're going to bring in a CEO because you're missing the ability to build a team, or we're going to bring in a CFO to help generate revenue within your company, or we're going to bring in a marketing guy, whatever they are. I don't know what their actual term is, but we're going to bring in a marketing guy to help you with sales and marketing. And that, you could be against it, you could be for it. I mean, I would be for it because I definitely lack in these areas. That's kind of my struggle, is that, other than building a team, I have experience building a team. I also have experience talking with a customer. Granted, I'm talking with professional customers like the government or I've worked on a couple startups, so I've talked with a couple investors about the products we were building. And what I've found is that, talking with customers, it's best to be honest and keep up with what's going on, even in like the the end user space. You talk about open source projects or community funded projects. They always complain that they want more transparency as to what's going on and insight into what's going on. And if you just keep them up to speed, like, hey, these are the hurdles we're dealing with, we're trying to work through, these are the things we're currently working on, these are the expected timelines, most people are like, okay, that's good. So that stuff, I'm pretty good at dealing with customers and building a team, but building a community or a demand for a product, which I guess is more marketing and sales, I don't have that kind of skill set. And so I wouldn't be against partnering with a salesperson. I kind of befriend salespeople. I'd have to say I have a couple of salespeople that are friends, and it's like, hey, can you help me out? So I think that's what investors are looking for more so than just the idea. They want these business development experiences to show that you can build a profitable company, as opposed to an idea that's exciting and interesting, but where's the company? Where's the experience coming from to build a company? And so, with all of that in mind, seeking out an investor is more like a job search than giving a pitch on an idea. So pitch deck, or these things are kind of fluffy and high level and kind of just grab your attention and get people interested. But I think the other aspects, building a community of interest, building or having sales experience or having revenue generating experience, these things are skills that investors are looking for. While your pitch gets them on the hook, it's more about, well, what does your resume look like? What does your customers look like? What does your revenue look like? And that's, I think, the important stuff. Do you have the backing to build a company? Do you have the skills? Do you have the experience to build this company? And so you have to approach investors like you're approaching a job. It's like, here's my resume, here's the things I can do, these are the experiences I've had, these are the things I'm trying to pursue. Can you help me get there? And that's pretty much the same with any job. And so I started thinking about it. Well, I suck at the interview process, so I mostly rely on them to discover what I'm capable of, as opposed to me selling what I'm able to do to them. And so I kind of do a shotgun approach to applying to jobs. And so eventually I'll come across somebody that gets what I do and understands what my capabilities are, and they want to bring me onto the team, as opposed to me selling myself during an interview. The interview becomes more of a conversation of, hey, how's it going? Do you want this job? As opposed to, do you know these random things that you may or may not have seen before? Or worse, I just Google searched this test and I don't really know the answers either, but I'm going to ask you them. It's like, okay, interviews are horrible. And so with that mindset, there's a lot of investors out there. And there's probably an investor that understands what you're trying to accomplish and is very interested in trying to help you accomplish that. It's just a matter of trying to find them. And that's the shotgun approach. Apply to all of them, talk to all of them, engage with them, try and pique their interest, and find out if they're a good match for what you're trying to do. And that, to me, I think is the approach. I mean, the other things, if you can do this all on your own, then definitely keep working at it and get it done. I mean, I'm going to keep trying to generate enough revenue in my project space, from my salary to other options that I'm pursuing, to try and fund my own project, while at the same time trying to look for investors, while at the same time trying to increase the performance of my algorithm so it doesn't require so much computing power. So these are all the things I'm trying to work towards. I'm trying to juggle them all, and that kind of becomes the question. Is like, do you juggle all of them, or do you just focus on one of them and hope that that path is the right way? And then, of course, they argue, well, you're not being decisive. I don't really know what decisive means, and maybe that's my problem. Is this the right path? Focusing on building enough of a cash reserve to pursue your project, focusing on finding an investor to give you the cash to drive your project, or build the skill sets you need to entice an investor, or do you just focus on building the product itself and eventually turn it into a cash generating business? And you have to take into your specific scenario into account and try and understand which of these paths are the best approach. So anyway, I think that's all I got. Thanks for watching.